Everyone was fleeing the hurricane, but 72-year-old Robert sat on his porch drinking coffee. "Is this man crazy?" shouted his neighbor Karen. 6 hours later, the same Karen was crying and hugging him in Robert's basement. Robert had been a Navy rescue swimmer for 30 years. He'd made over 500 rescues. And tonight, it was time to rescue his neighbors. Hurricane Michael was bearing down on Panama City, Florida. Category 5. Sustained winds of 160 miles per hour. The evacuation orders had been mandatory for 48 hours. The coastal neighborhood of Bayshore Drive was a ghost town, except for one house. Robert Thompson sat on his reinforced porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the darkening sky with professional interest. At 72, his hair was white, his back slightly bent, but his eyes remained sharp, the eyes of a man who'd stared down nature's fury countless times. "Robert! Robert!" Karen Mitchell came running from next door, car keys in hand, her family already packed in their SUV. "What are you doing? We need to go, now!" Robert took another sip of coffee. "Morning, Karen. I'm staying put." "Are you insane? This is Category 5. They said storm surge could be 20 feet. "I know what they said," Robert replied calmly. "Been through worse. House is ready." Karen's husband Tom joined her. "Mr. Thompson, this isn't like other storms. This is the big one. Your stubbornness is going to get you killed." Robert stood slowly, his old Navy tattoo visible on his forearm, an anchor wrapped in rope with RS in the center. Rescue swimmer. "Tom, I appreciate the concern, but I spent 30 years pulling people out of storms worse than this. My house is built to Navy specs. I'll be fine." "You're a crazy old fool," Karen snapped, fear making her angry. "When your roof flies off, don't expect anyone to save you." Robert smiled sadly. "Never expected anyone to save me, Karen. Always been the other way around. You folks better get going. Storm's moving faster than predicted." The Mitchells left, shaking their heads. Other neighbors had similar interactions. The Johnsons tried to convince him. The Garcias offered to physically carry him to their car. Young Mike Chen, the neighborhood tech entrepreneur, even offered to pay for a hotel inland. Robert declined them all with the same calm certainty. They all left thinking the same thing. Stubborn, old fool. By 3 p.m., Bayshore Drive was empty except for Robert Thompson. He walked through his house one more time, checking his preparations. The windows were covered with steel hurricane shutters he'd installed himself, rated for 200 miles per hour winds. The house's foundation went down 20 feet, anchored in bedrock. The walls were reinforced concrete with rebar, not up to code, but up to Navy Atlantic Fleet standards. The basement was his masterpiece. What the neighbors never knew was that Robert hadn't just been a rescue swimmer. He'd been a senior chief petty officer, leader of the Navy's elite hurricane response team. For 3 decades, he'd flown into the worst storms on Earth, pulling sailors and civilians from certain death. When he retired, he'd built this house as his final project, a shelter that could withstand anything nature could throw. The basement was equipped with emergency generators, water purification, medical supplies for trauma treatment, and enough food for 20 people for 2 weeks. He'd never told the neighbors. They thought he was just a peculiar old veteran with too much time and paranoia. They had no idea they lived next to a man who'd won the Navy Cross for swimming through a Category 4 hurricane to save a family of 5 from their sinking yacht. By 6 p.m., the outer bands hit. Rain hammered horizontally. Palm trees bent at impossible angles. By 8 p.m., the real storm arrived. Robert sat in his reinforced living room, monitoring multiple weather feeds on equipment that looked military grade, because it was. Wind speeds hit 140, then 150. The house didn't even creak. Then he heard it. Through the howling wind, screaming, he grabbed his binoculars, specially designed for storm conditions, and peered through a small reinforced window. 3 houses down, the Chen house was coming apart. The roof peeled away like paper. He saw Mike and his family scrambling. Without hesitation, Robert suited up. Not in rain gear, in his old rescue swimmer equipment, modified and maintained for 15 years of retirement. The dry suit still fit. The helmet lights still worked. The rope system was ready. He opened his front door and the wind tried to tear him away. But Robert had walked into hurricane winds before. He knew how to move, how to breathe, how to lean into the violence, 30 yards through flying debris, a lifetime of muscle memory guiding each step. He reached the Chens just as their second floor collapsed. "Follow me," he roared over the storm. "Stay low! Hold the rope!" Mike Chen, who 6 hours ago had thought Robert was a fool, now looked at him like he was seeing an angel. İşte kısaltılmış versiyon, yaklaşık %60, 175 oranında. Robert clipped them to his guide rope and led them back through the maelstrom. They made it to his house just as the Chen home completely disintegrated. "Basement," Robert commanded. "Move!" Mike saw the space for the first time. It looked like a military command center crossed with an emergency room. "Mr. Thompson? What is this?" "Safe room," Robert said simply. "Storm's just getting started." He was already heading back up. "Where are you going?" Mike's wife asked, terrified. "The Garcias were staying. So were the Johnsons. That's what I do. I go get people." For the next 2 hours, Robert went into the storm. The Garcias were trapped in their bathroom. Robert rappelled down and pulled them up one by one. The Johnsons were in their car, thrown into their living room. He administered first aid and led them through the debris. By midnight, Robert's basement held 12 people. The Chens, the Garcias, the Johnsons, and the Mitchells, who'd been forced back by flooding. Karen was crying, holding a gash on her arm. Robert cleaned and bandaged it. "I called you a fool," she sobbed. "You were scared," Robert said gently. "No harm done. How is your house still standing?" "How did you... out there? It's impossible." Robert finished the bandage. Senior Chief Robert Thompson, United States Navy, retired. Hurricane Rescue Team Leader, 1975 to 2005. This house was my retirement project. "You were a rescue swimmer?" Mike asked. "Among other things. After 30 years of pulling people out of storms, I figured I should be ready to shelter them from one." The storm raged until dawn. Robert had thought of everything: emergency supplies, medical equipment, even games for the children. He told stories of rescues at sea to distract from the terror above. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" Karen asked. "People already thought I was the weird old veteran. Didn't need to add to it." "You saved our lives," Mrs. Garcia said. "Just did what I trained for." When the storm passed, they emerged to devastation. Every house was destroyed, except Robert's. The National Guard found them 2 days later. The rescue team leader's eyes widened. "You're the Thompson? The hurricane hunter?" "Retired. These folks need medical checkups." "Senior Chief, I heard about you at rescue school. You're a legend." As the neighbors were loaded into trucks, Karen hugged him tightly. "I'm sorry. I called you a fool." "You weren't wrong," Robert smiled. "Just happened to be the right kind of fool for this storm." The story made national news. In one interview, they asked why he stayed. "For 30 years, I went where people needed rescue. When I retired, I didn't stop being a rescue swimmer. I just changed location. The neighborhood rebuilt. Robert's house became the community center. The Mitchells rebuilt next door. Karen brought him coffee every morning. You were so calm, like you were waiting for it." Spent my whole life running towards storms, Karen. Couldn't break the habit. 6 months later, the neighborhood had a new emergency plan. In case of future storms, everyone knew where to go: Robert Thompson's basement. And this time, they'd listen when he said he was staying. Because sometimes the stubborn veteran is stubborn because he knows something you don't. Years later, Robert's phone rings constantly. Former neighbors call to check if he's evacuating. They know he won't. Robert Thompson doesn't run from storms. His basement has saved 47 more people through 3 more hurricanes. The local school now teaches hurricane safety using his story. Children learn about the hurricane hunter of Bayshore Drive, who proves that preparation isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. When asked why he stays during every storm, Robert says, "A rescue swimmer's job is to be where people need rescuing. The uniform's different, but the mission's the same, so others may live." Senior Chief Robert Thompson is still on duty. He always will be.